Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific and the 2023 National Prisoner of War Missing in Action Recognition Day ceremony. My name is Joseph Dunbar, and I will be your Masters of Ceremonies for today's event. At this time, I would like to start by bidding a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, to our family members of missing action service members and prisoners of war. Navy Captain James Hickerson, Mrs. Natalie Rauch, Bernard Kumashiro and his wife Shannon Kumashiro, Mrs. Giovanna Lewis and Mr. Charles Lewis. These families represent supreme loyalty and continue to be an inspiration to our country and its service members today. Mrs. Sumter Winbush, the Principal Deputy Director for the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA. Mr. Alan Ho, a distinguished veteran of the Vietnam War and a tireless advocate for the veterans. Admiral Sam Paparo, Commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and Mrs. Maureen Paparo. Lieutenant General William M. Journey, Commander of the United States Marine Corps Forces Pacific. Major General Jared Helwig, Commanding General of the 8th Theater Sustainment Command. Major General Mark Weber, Air National Guard Assistant to the Commander, Pacific Air Forces. Major General Chris Smith, Deputy Commanding General, Australia, of the U.S. Army Pacific. Rear Admiral Jeffrey Anderson, Director of Operations for U.S. Indo-PACOM. Rear Admiral Michael Day, Commander of the 14th Coast Guard District. Brigadier General Kirk Gibbs, Commander of the Pacific Ocean Division, U.S. Corps of Engineers, accompanied by Command Sergeant Major Jamie Lopez. Rear Admiral Jeffrey Killian, Commander, Navy Facility Engineer Command Pacific, accompanied by Lieutenant Alvin Rudolph. Mr. Carlton Kramer, Dean of Academics, College of Security Studies at the Daniel K. Inouye Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. Mr. Devin Woods, Associate Director, Veterans Affairs of Pacific Island Healthcare System. And Colonel Retired Karen Brannon, spouse of Colonel Matt Brannon, Deputy Director for the Operations at Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. And to all our Veteran Service Organizations representatives who have joined us here today. National POW MIA Recognition Day ceremonies are held throughout the United States and around the world. It is on this day that Americans join together in remembering former American prisoners of war who have suffered the hardships of enemy captivity, service members, and civilians who remain missing. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remain standing for the posting of the colors, the playing of our national anthem, the Hawaii Pono'i, and the invocation given by Navy Chaplain Lieutenant Anthony Striffler.
Let us pray. Holy One, on this beautiful morning and in this sacred place, we thank you for gathering us today to remember and commemorate this POW MIA Recognition Day. From the beginning of time, humanity has seen fit to war with itself, and there are countless fields of the dead, both ancient and contemporary, that serve to remind us of the sacrifices that have been made by the countless brave who have paid the highest price for liberty and freedom. Some of those brave, however, remain lost and are not able to be returned home. It is for them and for their families that we continue to work, to search, and to pray. May the successful work of the Defense Personnel Accounting Agency, as well as their tireless commitment to finding these lost heroes and returning them home to us, be blessed, be fortified, and fill us all with hope. Hope that none will be left behind, none will be ignored, none will be forgotten, as we all wait for that glorious day when war will be no more and all creation will know peace. We pray this in your many holy names. Amen.
Thank you to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Joint Service Color Guard, the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Pacific Band, and Chaplain Stripler. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We will now read the State of Hawaii POW MIA Proclamation, signed by Governor Josh Green, M.D. Proclamation. Whereas, service members who suffered in enemy captivity and those still missing from the nation's wars deserve our deepest respect for their honor, valor, and tested heroism. And whereas, for the families and friends of those who remain missing in action, the pain and grief is compounded by a lack of closure. And for many of the service members who made it home, the physical and emotional scars from their service experiences are constant reminders of the suffering they endured while in captivity. Whereas, under the U.S. Department of Defense, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency is commissioned to provide to the families and to the nation the fullest possible accounting of our nation's soldiers and DoD personnel missing from World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Cold War, the Gulf Wars, and other recent conflicts, all from which more than 80,000 Americans remain missing. And whereas, of the 161 missing American soldiers and DoD personnel whose home record is Hawaii, only 8 have been accounted for, and 153 remain unaccounted for. And whereas, unaccounted for DoD personnel are those who went missing during a designated conflict and who have not been accounted for, including civilian employees of the DoD components, civilian employees of contractors to the DoD components, civilian employees of contractors of other U.S. government departments and agencies, employees of humanitarian agencies accredited to the military services, such as the American Red Cross and the United Services Organization, and members of the civilian organizations credited with active military service, such as the Merchant Marines and the American Volunteer Group. And whereas the collective work of DPAA, family organizations, veterans, public and private entities, foreign governments, and academia strengthens our nation's mission to recover and identify missing Americans from prior conflicts. Therefore, I, Josh Green, M.D., Governor of the State of Hawaii, do hereby proclaim September 15th, 2023 as POW MIA Recognition Day in Hawaii, and we ask the people of the Aloha State to join me in honoring our nation's POWs, our former POWs, the missing personnel, and those who made it home, and show support for the families of missing loved ones as our nation strives to bring them home. Signed, Josh Green, M.D., Governor, State of Hawaii. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor. I would like to introduce to you Mrs. Fern Sumter Winbush, Principal Deputy Director of Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, to offer remarks.
good morning and a heartfelt aloha to our distinguished guests. First, former POW Navy Captain James Hickerson. The families present today of our unaccounted for servicemen. Miss Natalie Rausch, daughter of Colonel Warren Anderson, United States Air Force, Vietnam War. Miss Giovanna Lewis, niece of Corporal Enfrey Silva, United States Army, Korean War. And Mr. Bernard Kumashiro, cousin of Captain Masaru Kumashiro, U.S. Army, Korean War. Each of you represent a pillar of unwavering resolve that we all have great respect for. Today, it is my distinct honor to host this important observance in honor of your loved ones and the 81,385 Americans who are still unaccounted for. Mr. Alan Ho, Admiral Paparo and Mrs. Paparo, Lieutenant General Journey and Mrs. Journey, other distinguished leaders and guests, members of the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, welcome to the National POW MIA Recognition Day observance. As we gather on these hallowed grounds here at the beautiful Punch Bowl, we demonstrate a heartfelt appreciation to those who sacrifice so greatly for our nation, our ideals, and to protect our allies. We also take this moment to ensure that this generation and the generations to come remember the consequences of war, the individual stories of those who never returned, and to show appreciation to every former POW who endured horrific circumstances while in captivity. We must never take for granted what they who came before us did. We really do stand on the shoulder of giants. So today, our nation pauses to remember and honor them. Since the end of the Vietnam War, DPAA and its predecessors have managed the recovery, identification, and return of thousands of our missing Americans to their families who have actively sought answers. We have been our nation's promise keepers, not only to those we continue to search for, but for those who are serving today. That should you go missing and do not return, we will come for you. For the past 35 years, the United States and Vietnam have worked together in what is now a comprehensive strategic partnership to account for Americans missing from the Vietnam War. This robust, enduring relationship has enabled the return of 733 U.S. service members and civilians to their families. This mission is both sacred and a moral imperative. And today, the Department of Defense remains committed to providing the fullest possible accounting of our missing personnel. Sustaining these operations is no small task. And every year, we commit hundreds of DPAA civilian and military personnel, augmentees from the armed services, and our partners to investigate and recovery missions around the globe. By the end of this month, we will have been in 40 countries. It takes cooperation on a global scale, and we are grateful for the 45 nations who partner with us on this humanitarian mission to search for and recover our missing Americans. This mission continues to garner the attention of the American public, and we have witnessed the efforts of private citizens and groups who just simply want to help. The will of these individuals is powerful. Last year, retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major Justin LaHue, an Iraq War veteran, completed a 3,365-mile walk from my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, to Newport, Oregon, just to raise awareness about DPAA's mission. Just today, he completed 270 miles from Bedford, Virginia, to the Pentagon, where he participated in the Secretary of Defense's National POW MIA Recognition Day ceremony. What an amazing sacrifice. We are so appreciative and grateful for Justin. Since coming together as a new defense agency in 2015, our team of highly skilled civilians and military personnel have achieved notable milestones. Already this year, we have accounted for 123 service members missing from World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Service members like Army Air Corps 2nd Lieutenant Fred Brewer of North Carolina, who was accounted for on August 10th. During World War II, Lieutenant Brewer was part of the esteemed African-American fighter pilot unit known as the Tuskegee Airmen. More than 7 decades ago, Lieutenant Brewer departed Ramitelli Air Base in Italy to escort bombers to their targets in Germany. Along the way, the bomber group experienced heavy cloud cover. Attempting to rise above the clouds, Lieutenant Brewer entered into a steep climb, but his engine stalled, causing his P-51C Mustang to crash. Until last month, he was one of 26 Tuskegee Airmen whose whereabouts remained unknown. A rosette will now be placed next to his name on the tablets of the missing at the Florence American Cemetery to indicate that he has been accounted for. His cousin, Brenda Brewer, who was instrumental in convincing the relatives of Lieutenant Brewer to provide DNA samples, a simple cheek swab, is also being recognized at the Pentagon commemoration ceremony today. We enjoy, and the families of the unaccounted for benefit from our long-standing partner relationships. In April 2021, while conducting recovery operations of their own in the demilitarized zone in South Korea, our Republic of Korea allies discovered remains near the hill where Americans died during a battle in April 1951. In October of last year, the Republic of Korea's Ministry for Finding Missing Personnel turned over the remains to DPAA. After many months of analysis, we identified U.S. Sergeant Stanley Turba. Soon, his daughter Sandra will welcome him home after more than 72 years. This year, the Vietnam Office for Seeking Missing Persons celebrated its 50th anniversary. During the height of COVID-19, when restrictions prevented our teams from traveling to Vietnam, the Vietnam Office for Seeking Missing Persons sent their own teams, previously trained by DPAA, to multiple sites for the remains of Americans. In March of 2021, they visited a crash site in Quang Nam Province of an F-4 two-seater fighter bomber aircraft. There they recovered the remains of U.S. Air Force Colonel Ernest DeSoto and Captain Frederick Hall. Colonel DeSoto was buried with full military honors in June, and Captain Hill will finally be laid to rest next month on October 10. These are just a few of the many stories of missing personnel recovered and returned to their families. Stories of sacrifice, of hope, and of resolve. To the families of the missing and unaccounted for, please know that your strength motivates us each day as we do our work, with a solemn and unwavering commitment to achieving the fullest possible accounting of our missing personnel. Many of those we identified over the years are buried here at the Punch Bowl. Their names with rosettes are inscribed on the stone before us. As we pause to reflect and hope, today I stand in representation of the families of the more than 81,000 still unaccounted for, who generations later still do not have answers. They do not have the gift of knowing exactly where their loved ones are. These families await answers, and it is because of them that the men and women of the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency remain committed, focused, and determined. For us, every day is National POW MIA Recognition Day. I am a firsthand witness of the dedicated hard work of the more than 600 members of our team and our numerous partners. We are tireless, and we will never quit until we fulfill our nation's promise to provide the fullest possible accounting for those families and the nation. Now, before closing, it is my distinct honor to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Alan Kaleolani Ho. His extraordinary life story is a testament to heritage, dedication, and service. His bio is printed in your program, but what I would like to highlight is that Alan is a gentleman, a husband, and a proud father of two. He and his children have served, and one continues to serve our nation honorably today. His family has also sacrificed much, losing a son and a brother during the Iraq War. He is a decorated Vietnam War combat veteran, having received the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star medals. He has served as a lawyer and a district court judge representing labor and management organizations and specializing in business and administrative law. Beyond practicing law, Alan's dedication to public service is profound. He has served 4 Secretaries of Defense as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army and still serves as a civilian aide emeritus today. Notably, Alan is an accomplished horseman and polo enthusiast, serving as the president of the Honolulu Polo Club. He received the General George S. Patton Award for his service to the Army Polo Program. It is impossible to capture the full breadth of his remarkable life in a few brief moments. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest speaker, whose experiences and commitment to service inspire us all. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ho.
What an awesome introduction with the choppers going overhead. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e, e o mai e nā hoa kaua, e moe mali e I ka lai, velo ka la I lehua, velo ka la I lehua, e lohe mai I ka leo, e ka hea nei ia oe, velo ka la lehua, velo ka I lehua, aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. A Hawaiian oli describing where the sun sets and fallen warriors rest in eternal sleep. It is a cultural tribute to all of the heroic patriots who gave their last full measure of devotion. It is also a sacred duty to remember and honor them daily, especially in these ancient hallowed grounds of Pu'uwaina, our national monument of the Pacific Punch Bowl. We are challenged daily on how we remember, honor, and celebrate the heroes who wore the same uniforms we did. Our duty is to never forget them. We are honored by the family members joining us today, whom I am certain will never forget their loved ones we honor today. When I call your name, please stand. I mean, your name has been mentioned before, but people out there don't know who you are. Natalie Rao. Thank you, Natalie. Natalie's father, then Captain Warren Anderson, was lost in April of 1966 while on an unarmed night reconnaissance flight north of Dong Hoi, North Vietnam, over a heavily defended anti-aircraft complex in his Phantom jet. Thank you, Natalie. Bernard Kumashiro. Bernard is the younger cousin of PFC Masaru Kumashiro of Honolulu. PFC Kumashiro was classified missing in action and declared dead as of September 8, 1951. PFC Kumashiro served as a light infantryman with Company L, the 35th Regiment Cacti of Hawaii's own 25th Infantry Division. He went missing when his unit was conducting defensive operations in the Busan area of North Korea along the Chongchon River. Thank you, Bernard. Giovanna Lewis. Giovanna is the niece of Corporal Anfre Silva, who was serving in the 3rd of the 31st Infantry Regiment with the 24th Infantry Division. He was born in New Mexico, but grew up and lived in California. And at the time he went missing, he was 18. He was serving in some of the earliest battles in the Daejeon region during the Korean War. Thank you, Giovanna. A very special aloha and mahalo to Ms. Winbush, our Principal Deputy Director of DPAA, whose duty it is to keep this mission on track, and to the legions of the men and women in DPAA who work diligently to ensure that President Reagan's words, "Until we have achieved the fullest possible accounting of those missing in action," is fulfilled. Today, National POW MIA Recognition Day, is a day our country honors those who were held captive and subsequently returned, as well as those who remain missing. Its history dates back to 1979, but its legacy and mission goes even further back to 1969, when family members of POWs and those declared MIA from the Vietnam War organized themselves as the National League of POW MIA Families. You know, that group of individuals, the League, became a formidable group of mothers, wives, sisters, and brothers who refused to be ignored by their government. A number of them are very dear personal friends. God bless them all. The iconic black and white flag of the National League of Families, symbolizing the service of America's POWs and MIA, flies with extra gratitude and determination over the White House, the Capitol, memorials, cemeteries, U.S. military installations, local post offices, and U.S. embassies overseas. That flag conveys the simple message of a steadfast nation's deep appreciation to those who have endured enemy captivity, its relentless pursuit of those who have yet to return from war, and an unshakable promise to their families that their loved ones are not forgotten. You know, I was pleased to hear that Jim and Carol have arrived this morning, both of whose legacies are deeply connected with the POW MIA mission. Jim was a POW, and Carol's role, which many people still do not recognize, was very iconic in the creation of the flag that we all cherish as the POW MIA ensign. On this, the 78th anniversary of the end of World War II, on September 2nd, 1945, an estimated 72,000 U.S. personnel continue as missing, but we all believe that their remains are recoverable. The Korean War began 73 years ago on June 25th, 1950. Today, more than 7,500 U.S. personnel remain accounted for from that war. And this year marks the 48th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, with more than 1,500 U.S. personnel still remaining missing from the Vietnam War. In keeping with President Reagan's promise, DPAA remains firmly committed to the fullest possible accounting of all those U.S. personnel who remain missing and to their families who continue to wait for answers about their loved ones. The United States has set the standard for the endeavor by its example, and as such, much more countries have created their own efforts, and to date, 46 countries have joined with the United States of America to pursue that same dream and mission. Let me just share a couple examples of the work that was done this year by DPAA. Corporal Luther Story, U.S. Army, serving in Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 9th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division, was killed on September 1, 1950, while engaged in combat near the Noctong River. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor on June 21, 1951, for his heroics upon his death. And after 70 years, his remains were finally recovered, and DPAA accounted for its identification in April of this year. His remains were returned to his family for burial at Andersonville, Georgia, in May of this year. Commander Frederick Schrader, a U.S. Navy aviator from Lawrenceville, Illinois, was the commander of Carrier Air Group 11 on the USS Hornet and was flying a Hellcat when he was shot down on 13 October 1944 during the Battle of Formosa. He was 31 years of age. After the war, his remains, still unidentified, was buried as an unknown at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific here. And it wasn't until DPAA disinterred and identified him, which was done in September of 2022, he was buried here at Punch Bowl. His 80-year-old daughter, Mrs. Barbara Caravan, was 2 years old when her father was killed. And the last thing her father had given her before he deployed was a teddy bear with a naval aviator wings. Mr. Matthew Robbins, a 99-year-old chief petty officer who had served with Commander Schrader aboard the USS Hornet, played a major role in resolving the identification question with regard to Commander Schrader. 53 years ago, I was a 20-year-old kid, and I'll emphasize kid, who became a combat medic. I volunteered for Vietnam. With my skills as a medic and a native Hawaiian warrior, I did not want to miss out on the combat experience, if you will, in true teenage mentality. In December of 1967, I arrived in Nam as a medic in a long-range reconnaissance platoon with the 2nd Battalion, 1st Infantry Regiment of the 196th Light Infantry Brigade. Our area of operations was in the northern sectors of South Vietnam, known as I Corps. This precious flag, if I can get it, served as my unit's talisman of sorts. It was something to remind us of what service to one's country was all about. For those of you who can remember back to 1963, General Douglas MacArthur's lasting challenge: duty, honor, country. The area we patrolled was hotly contested, and our battles against the VC and the NVA were almost daily. The Tet Offensive, Khe Sanh, Hue, Ashau Valley, those names were endless and unforgettable. Our area of operations was in the Khe Sanh, Hep Duc, Tien Phuc, and areas west of Tam Kỳ and Da Nang. In May of 1968, our battalion was providing overwatch of Cam Duc, a Green Beret camp. And early on the morning of Mother's Day 1968, a North Vietnamese force overran our positions. My lieutenant, Frederick Ransbottom, and our radio man, PFC Skivington, were 2 of 17 servicemen unaccounted for after the battle. Search and recovery efforts at the site in 1970 finally succeeded in recovering the remains of 5 of those 17 men. A 6th specialist, Julius Long, was returned alive during Operation Homecoming in 1973, after having been captured and held prisoner for 5 years by the North Vietnamese. Between 1993 and 2006, the joint U.S. Socialist Republic of Vietnam and JPAC, then DPAA was known for, conducted 8 investigations and 4 excavations in the vicinity of the battle. The JFA 85 and File 1171 team interviewed former North Vietnamese officers and soldiers who participated in the battle, some recalling seeing the bodies of U.S. servicemen near one of the observation posts, and U.S. eyewitness accounts place Ransbottom and Skivington near that post. The years following my time in Vietnam were spent returning to a civilian life. During our service, soldiers talked endlessly about what we would do once our war was over: college, marriage, a family, a career. However, never from the daily routine of our lives was the memories of our buddies who made it, as well as the ones who did not. When I came home in 1968, I fulfilled a promise I made to my buddy Skip Skivington. if anything ever happened to either of us, we would visit the other's family to try to best to comfort them. Thus, I traveled to Las Vegas to visit the Skivington family. It was not easy, but over the years, his father, a World War II hero, and I became very close. The most common question which was always posed to me was, what happened? You know, there was our version being there, and then there was the official Army version in those days. We do not know. In July of 1990, my 12-year-old son, Nainoa, and I visited Washington, D.C. He wanted to see all the museums, all the monuments, the Lincoln, Washington, and Jefferson. When we arrived at the apex of the Vietnam Wall and stood for a moment, the grip on my hand tightened when he saw the tears in my eye. We stopped at panel 37, 38, 47, 55, 58, and 59. He was introduced to two of his relatives, Staff Sergeant Eddie Lovell, a namesake of one of his great-grandfathers, and a Green Beret cousin. He touched the names of First Lieutenant Frederick Ransbottom, William Skip Skivington, and 16 more. He knew those names. He had heard them many times before. He knew the story of how they came to be on the wall, Mother's Day, 1968, at a remote Special Forces camp called Camp Duck. 18 of our nation's finest young men were claimed. They were part of my recon team, Snoopy. You know, my greatest legacy are my boys. Both U.S. Army infantry soldiers, First Lieutenant Nainoa Ho, Airborne Ranger Striker Platoon Leader, assigned to the 3rd of the 21st Infantry Regiment, the Gimlets, in the 25th Infantry Division. And First Sergeant Nakoa Ho, Airborne Infantry, Delta Company, 100th Battalion, 442nd Infantry, Hawaii's own Go for Broke Warriors. Nainoa was so proud to lead an infantry platoon comprised of battle-tested Rangers into combat. He loved his job, his men, and they loved and respected this young warrior from Hawaii. On top of that, he was in the infantry battalion, which had served alongside Dad's infantry battalion in Vietnam 36 years earlier. For him, it could not get any better than that. He shared stories with his soldiers of Dad's service and the battle flag, which his men, with his men. One day he called me, said, "Dad, send the battle flag. My men want to carry it to honor the men who served with you in Vietnam." Nainoa never met my buddies who were MIA, but he never forgot their names or who they were. Is it fate that this, my battle flag, which protected me through the grim days of 67 and 68 in Vietnam, would be carried by my son and his platoon the day he was killed in combat? This flag is more than just an assemblage of cloth and thread. It is a living symbol of duty, honor, and country. It is over 56 years old, which is how long it has been entrusted to my care. It has flown over American warriors in combat in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, and 4 times in Iraq. In 2004, Major General Eric Olson's Task Force 76 took it with them when the 25th Infantry Division commenced its combat operations in Afghanistan. And in 2010, Major General Bernie Champeau had it when the U.S. completed its combat operations in Iraq. JPAC's efforts to work the Camduck file conducted several unsuccessful missions in 1998 and began to lose momentum. But the Skivington, the Ransbottom, and the Widener families and survivors would not go away quietly. Fortunately, we had piqued the interest on this file within JPAC, and thus one more mission was set following a debriefing with the JPAC team by my buddies. We met 8 months after Nainoa was killed in combat in Mosul, Iraq. At the meeting, everyone present was wearing my hero button that Dad still wears, as a show of love and support for one of their own. The JPAC team leader, Brad Sturm, asked, "Doc, do you have any more of Nainoa's buttons?" "I do. Bring them to me. I want all of my teammates to have one when we go on this next search. You know, Nainoa will help us find your guys." Yes, of course. Why would it not turn out any different? You know, a miracle occurred on March 30, 2006, when the JPAC team began their excavation on the battle site. The personal media and the relics of Lieutenant Ransbottom and Skip Skivington simply came out of the ground. On June 30th, 2006, the Ransbottom, Skivington, and Widener family and members of my recon team came to Hawaii to participate in this incredible repatriation ceremony at Hickam Air Force Base. On January 17, 2007, we all traveled to Edmond, Oklahoma to bury our beloved Lieutenant Ransbottom. And on January 23, 2007, we all made the journey to Arlington to bury Skip. A lasting tribute to Lieutenant Ransbottom and Skip Skivington and Danny Widener permanently resides at the Daniel K. Inouye DPAA Center of Excellence and is encased in the concrete foundation beneath the American flag, in a koa calabash which contains their POW MIA bracelets worn by individuals not known to either family but returned to those families upon the news of their repatriation, along with coins and patches of the infantry brigade and dirt from Camp Duck, where they lay buried for 37 years. Danny Widener's sister, Vicky, who remains, sent me a note to share. We must continue to remember our POW MIAs. Every family deserves the right to bury their sibling. The children of the missing in action, many of which grew up only knowing their fathers through pictures, still strive for answers today. On this day, we honor their fathers. They are not forgotten. This day is a promise to anyone wearing the uniform or will ever wear the uniform that should you be lost, the United States of America will leave no stone unturned until you are returned to American soil. In closing, I would like to share a special thought espoused by World War II hero Jim Pee Wee Martin, who was a paratrooper on D-Day at Normandy with the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment. Service is not a sacrifice. Lots of people say it is a sacrifice. I'm here to say it is not a sacrifice. It is a duty that you are obligated to. If you live in a free country, whether you agree with what they do or not, if you are called, you should go and do your very best. I will never stop caring for those who wear our nation's uniform in my defense. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we will remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember them. As long as we live, they too will live. They are a part of us. We will remember them. We will not forget. Thank you.
At this time, we will present Mr. Ho with a certificate and plaque of appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your remarks, your dedication and passion for educating and informing current, past, and future generations of the sacrifices made by our nation's hero is greatly appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, Dr. Renee Zielinski and Mr. Kevon Hunter will now read the names of the heroes who have been recovered, identified, and returned to their loved ones since our last National POW MIA Recognition Day.
Second Lieutenant Fred L. Brewer, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Captain Ralph J. Chipman, U.S. Marine Corps, Vietnam War. Gunner's Mate 3rd Class Arnold E. Lyon, U.S. Navy, World War II. First Lieutenant Charles G. Reynolds, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Private First Class Glenn A. Harris, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. First Lieutenant Edward T. McGuire, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Stanley Turba, U.S. Army, Korean War. Sergeant Irving R. Newman, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Private First Class Albert A. Gosnell, U.S. Army, Korean War. Sergeant John W. Radanovic, U.S. Army, World War II.
Second Lieutenant Walter B. Miklosh, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Flight Officer Chester L. Rinke, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Private Daniel Moniz, U.S. Army, World War II. Second Lieutenant Edward Barnett, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Donald C. Aiken, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Crescenciano Garcia, U.S. Army, Korean War. Private Wing O. Ham, U.S. Army, World War II. First Lieutenant Alfred W. Pazzella, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. First Lieutenant Noel E. Shoup, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Corporal Luther H. Story, U.S. Army, Korean War.
Private Alvin D. Thurman, U.S. Army, Korean War. Technical Sergeant Elton L. Gamillion, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Colonel Ernest L. DeSoto, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam War. Captain Frederick M. Hall, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam War. Private First Class George B. Thomas, U.S. Army, World War II. Staff Sergeant Wesley L. Jones, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Corporal Gordon D. McCarthy, U.S. Army, Korean War. Corporal Rex W. Powell, U.S. Army, Korean War. Sergeant Willie J. Beatty, U.S. Army, Korean War. Private Leroy M. Slickner, U.S. Army, World War II.
Corporal Carmen Carrillo, U.S. Army, Korean War. Corporal Donald L. DuPont, U.S. Army, Korean War. Sergeant Richard M. Sharrow, U.S. Army, Korean War. First Lieutenant George W. Winger, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. First Lieutenant George J. Reuter, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Aviation Ordnanceman First Class Anthony DePetta, United States Navy, World War II. First Lieutenant James A. Deeds, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant James L. Wilkinson, U.S. Army, Korean War. Private First Class William L. Simon, U.S. Army, World War II. Private First Class Daniel D. Thompson, U.S. Army, Korean War.
Second Lieutenant Porter M. Pyle, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Private Eugene P. Miller, U.S. Marine Corps, World War II. Private First Class James L. Miller, U.S. Army, Korean War. Second Lieutenant William Scott, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Arthur B. Van Cleek, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Alan H. Tuttle, U.S. Army, Korean War. Technical Sergeant James M. Triplett, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Sergeant Howard G. Malcolm, U.S. Army, Korean War. Private John W. Ropp, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Corporal Dewey E. Ruiz, U.S. Army, Korean War.
Chief Warrant Officer 3, Larry A. Zich, U.S. Army, Vietnam War. First Lieutenant John B. Thomas, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. First Lieutenant Paul W. Schmidt, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Private First Class Clinton E. Smith, U.S. Army, World War II. Private James R. Tash, U.S. Army, World War II. Corporal Leo J. Barlowski, U.S. Army, World War II. Private First Class Roy J. Searle, U.S. Army, World War II. Commander Frederick R. Schrader, United States Navy, World War II. Staff Sergeant James Rotunno, U.S. Army, World War II. Private J.C. Brooks, U.S. Army, World War II.
Corporal Delbert L. White, U.S. Army, Korean War. Technical Sergeant Ralph E. Richardson, U.S. Army Air Forces. Staff Sergeant Ralph D. Kolb, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Corporal Joseph H. Gunno, U.S. Army, World War II. Private First Class Mark P. Wilson, U.S. Army, World War II. Private First Class Clinton P. Kolowski, U.S. Army, World War II. Private Robert R. Gruel, U.S. Army, World War II. Corporal Clark E. Warland, U.S. Army, Korean War. Corporal Joe A. Vineyard, U.S. Army, World War II. First Lieutenant Carl D. Nesbitt, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. First Lieutenant Melvin B. Meyer, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Second Lieutenant Wayne L. Dyer, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II. Staff Sergeant George E. Davies, U.S. Army Air Forces, World War II.
Incredible. Since the last National POW MAI Recognition Day ceremony, DPAA recovery teams have found and repatriated remains from across the globe. Remains have also been accessioned into the lab from disinterments from our veterans cemeteries worldwide and unilateral turnovers. These countries include, but are not limited to, the Republic of Austria, the Kingdom of Belgium, the Kingdom of Cambodia, Saipan of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Republic of Croatia, the Kingdom of Denmark, the Republic of France, the Federal Republic of Germany, Guam, the Republic of Hungary, the Republic of India, the Republic of Italy, the Republic of Kiribati Tarawa, the Republic of Korea, the State of Kuwait, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Malaysia, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federal States of Micronesia, the Republic of Palau, the Republic of the Philippines, the independent state of Papua New Guinea, the Republic of Poland, the Portuguese Republic, the Solomon Islands, the Kingdom of Thailand, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, the Republic of Vanuatu, and the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. In total, DPA index operations in 145 diverse countries across the globe. These remains are undergoing forensic analysis in DPA's laboratories. May they too one day be identified. Groups who are now presenting wreaths are now invited to move to the back of the seating area for the presentation of the wreaths. At this time, Mrs. Sumter Winbush and Lieutenant Commander Santos will place a wreath in honor of American prisoners of war and those still missing in action. We pray that the families and friends still waiting closure eventually find solace in having their loved ones returned.
A wreath will be presented by Admiral Sam Paparo, Pac Fleet. A wreath will be presented by Lieutenant General William Journey, Mar Forfac. A wreath will be presented by Major General Mark Weber, Pacific Air Forces. A wreath will be presented by Major General Chris Userpak. A wreath will be presented by Rear Admiral Jeffrey Anderson, Indo-PACOM. A wreath will be presented by Rear Admiral Michael Day, 14th Coast Guard District. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Stan Fernandez, Veteran of Foreign Wars, Post 10276. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Donovan Lazarus, American Veterans Department of Hawaii. A wreath will be presented by Ms. Rona Adams and Mr. Doc Steinhilber, Vietnam Veterans of America, CPTA 58. A wreath will be presented by the State Commander, Master Sergeant Retired Don Brown, Jr., Disabled American Veterans of Hawaii. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Devin Woods, Department of Veteran Affairs, Pacific Healthcare System. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Walter Furuyama, Korean War Veteran Association, Hawaii, Chapter 1. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Ron Lockwood, Veteran of Foreign Wars, Department of Hawaii.
That may not be on your list.
That's all right. So,
C.R. Drumheller, American Legion, Department of Hawaii.
C.R. Drum. Too easy. Thanks. A wreath will be presented by Mr. C.R. Drumheller, Commander, Post 17, American Legion, Hawaii. A wreath will be presented by Mr. Steve Thompson, Special Operations Association.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise and salute or raise your hand to your heart for the memorial rifle salute and the playing of taps. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the retiring of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the amazing staff of the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, Chaplain Striffler, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Joint Service Color Guard, the MAR 4-Pack Firing Detail, the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Pacific Band, and the DPAA volunteers for making this ceremony a success. I would also like to thank Mrs. Sumter Winbush and Mr. Alan Ho for his inspiring address. And a final thank you to those organizations that presented wreaths today in memory of the fallen. At this time, please remain standing for the Armed Forces Medley. Sing along with your song.
Proud of all we have done, fighting till the gun's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.